Hi guys, me again. Looking at question 4 in this tutorial, again looking at the differences between grade 5 and grade 9 with a couple of examples, well, one example from each grade. So question 4, as we know by now, is the evaluation question, and you're always going to be asked to agree or disagree with a particular statement that you've been given. So if we think about the Summer 18 question, we were to focus our answer on the second part of the question. Just really make sure you look carefully at that. I have seen students who end up writing about the earlier part or bringing evidence from that, and of course you are being asked to focus on this. So they are going to, you will get penalised if you don't pay attention. Also, you might find it's worth looking in terms of question 3, because sometimes looking at this will give you a clue as to where the focus shift is. So it's always worth just having a quick look. So the statement was about Mr. Fisher marking the homework, and so we've got two things in here. So this part of the story shows that his story is better than expected and his reaction is extreme. So we've been asked to agree or disagree. So to what extent, how much do we agree or disagree with this? How much do we agree that his story is better than expected? And how much do we agree that the reaction is extreme? So remember, getting a high grade on this is not about having a really balanced response. You can 100% agree, you can 100% disagree, or you can do both. You can agree with some parts of the statement and not others. So, some students might say, well, actually, no, I think that Fisher was expecting it, he left it to last, he took a big breath, he knew that there was a spark in him, but actually, no, Fisher's reaction is massively over the top and weird and extreme. So, remember to look at which, what is the focus of this statement, and there may well be two things that you're asked to kind of look at. So, we've got some bullet points here. I'm torn on these. I sometimes find these not as helpful as they could be, the bullet points. I think this is up to you and how you've been taught. I think that really the bullet points to me don't help with this question. The focus for me and what I look for students to do is how much can they explain and evaluate and justify why they agree or don't. So I want you to be able to say, I agree with this because, and here's some evidence, and here's some techniques and things that the writer's done. So I think this can complicate it. This is obviously a 20-mark question, and at 25 marks, let me do the maths, this makes it, what, 12.5% of your GCSE? So I'm really scared that that's not right. No, that is right, 12.5%. So it's an important question, and it's worth spending some time on, at least 25 minutes of your exam. My students say, how much do I have to write for this? I think that you possibly are looking for, 4 peel points, 4 reasons really why you agree, disagree, or combinations thereof. So what we would have been doing then is we would look from lines 25. Okay, so this is the text I was using from the last tutorial, which is why the notes are down the side. But I'd be looking for where are the reasons that I agree or disagree. Right, so one reason that I might disagree is that he says not all the boys lacked imagination. He's already identified Alistair Tibbet, and he uses that metaphor of there's a spark in him. And then he takes a deep breath, looks at it, but then when I start thinking about the strange sensation Fisher has, the tightening in the diaphragm, the breathing that quickens, sweating, do I think that reaction's quite extreme? Yeah, I do. I think that's, as I say, it's not a reaction I've ever had when I've been reading stuff. Maybe I'm just not as fortunate as Mr. Fisher. But it's just cleaning my thing. It's gone a bit blurry. Okay, come and visualise it. Oh, yeah, it's a bit better. So it's quite extreme, but this, to me, says it's not unexpected that Tibbet's work was going to be okay. It deserved attention, for example. And then looking towards the end of this must be what a prospector feels when discouraged, He read it again critically, marking off the paragraphs, a hope, swelled in him and grew strong. He found himself beginning to smile. So again, you could say that that's extreme, but I've smiled at students' work before. I've read something and thought, that's brilliant, that's amazing. So yeah, I don't think that's extreme to smile at students' work. It's what us teachers do our jobs for. And you know, his excitement there at the end where he sees that it's something original. Again, maybe that's quite rare and unique, but I wouldn't say that it's an extreme reaction. So we would have gone through that to look for our evidence, remembering that we can look for language, structure, anything really that the writer's done, so we can look at tone, mood, lots of different techniques. So let's look at, this is my grade 5 paragraph, and what I'm hoping is that this feels quite reassuring and quite within your comfort zone of things that you are already much more capable of doing. So sometimes, you know, you can say, I agree. I think a good start to a sentence is, I agree with the reaction, but you can imply that as well. So at the point where I said the writer conveys that Mr. Fisher as shocked, really that's thinking about his reaction. So this is kind of, you know, a link to the statement and creates the sense that he can't believe what he's reading. This is shown through, so I've got some evidence to support my opinion. A strange sensation. The adjective, right, so this is where there are marks for methods, which basically means the writer's techniques. So the adjective strange shows how unusual his feeling how is, which also shows he isn't used to such work from Tibbet. This does support the statement. Right, I mean, this might feel really basic, but if students made a number of points where they've got methods, examples, they've got the link to the statement, so this means that they can evaluate the statement, and it can explain the method. Shows he isn't used to work from Tibbet. Again, we've got that link there, that it's, you know, better than he expected. So I feel like this is fairly kind of basic looking, and you reading this, I'm thinking, yeah, that's entirely doable. But really, if a student carried on in this style with methods, with techniques, evaluating, they would be looking at around 12 marks out of 20, which would push them into a grade 5. Now, this tutorial really isn't about getting a grade 5, it's about what's the difference between a grade 5 and a grade 9 piece of work. So I'm just going to show you a paragraph here from a grade 9 response. So I agree that his reaction is extreme due to his huge physical response. So we've got here an evaluation, so linking to the statement, I'm agreeing about that. I've got some evidence, which is Mr. Fisher's response. He began to sweat and his diaphragm was tightening. So I've got some specific examples, and at the point where I put the verbs, I'm showing I'm aware that it's a method, it's a technique. These verbs demonstrate the scale of Fisher's shock. So I've got some effects. And this is where I'm starting to move into higher grades, because I'm developing, you know, at grade 5, you just kind of leave it there. As you get higher and higher, you're expected to add to it, add more examples, add more reasons, add a developed explanation. It's almost as though his whole body has been galvanized into action. The warm room adds to this. Despite the snow, Fisher's experience is becoming one of delight and excitement. Indeed, Tibbet's work seems to have the power to rejuvenate the tired teacher, something that seems surprising and extreme. So we've got that link back to the statement. When I'm talking about things like this, and I've mentioned this in the last question, so when I'm using these kinds of words, you know, his experience is one of delight and excitement, all of these things here are me showing my ability to evaluate. And evaluate is just having ideas, opinions, judgments that you can back up and support. Now, obviously, I've used words like galvanised and rejuvenate, which are a bit more kind of like high level, a bit more sophisticated. But the point is, I could have said, you know, his whole body has been, I don't know, moved into action, or it's got the ability to refresh him. So didn't have to necessarily use those. I would still have got a grade 9 without them. But what you can see is that I can back up with a number of bits of evidence, and I can really evaluate, what is Tibet's work doing to this teacher? It's refreshing him, it's bringing him to life almost, and with a clear link. And I'm not just saying, like in the grade 5 one, I said it supports the statement. Here I'm saying, I'm linking to the statement, but I'm also adding this in. It's not just that it's extreme, but it's also surprising to us that a piece of students' work could refresh a teacher and, bring them back to life in that kind of way. So to kind of summarise really the differences between a grade 5 and a grade 9. At grade 5, you're identifying some techniques and examples, you are agreeing or disagreeing with the statement and explaining the methods, but really you're not perhaps doing much more than looking at a word and zooming in on that word, a bit like you would have done language question. By the time you're looking at higher marks, really the expectation is that you will find a number of examples to back up your ideas. And when you're evaluating, whether you're agreeing or disagreeing, really you can develop that, bringing in a number of different points and bringing in a degree of evaluative language like we've got here. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next tutorial.